was just another summer night in our sleepy town when curiosity got the better of me. You see, there's this old hospital at the edge of town, Maple Grove General. It's been abandoned since I was a kid, and everyone in town had their own spooky story about it. Unexplained shadows, strange noises, the works. I guess that's why I wanted to see it for myself. Now, I know it sounds kind of crazy to go and explore an abandoned hospital all alone, but I've always had this weird interest in abandoned buildings, and I like to watch those people that go through all these old landmarks and post them on YouTube, so I thought I'd follow in their footsteps. I grabbed my dad's old camera, a bit of a relic, but it worked, and a flashlight. The idea was to capture something, anything that could be considerably ghostly. I figured at worst I'd get some cool shots of an old broken down building. Getting in was easier than I thought. A part of the fence was bent back just enough for someone to slip through. The moment I stepped inside, the air changed. It felt heavier, colder. The silence was overwhelming. All those stories I'd heard as a kid suddenly felt a lot more real. The first few rooms were just empty, peeling paint, broken glass, the stuff you'd expect in an abandoned building. I snapped a few pictures, trying to keep my hands steady. It was when I reached hallway 3B that things started to get weird. You see, hallway 3B was infamous in our town's lore. It was supposed to be the most haunted part of the hospital. The moment I entered, I felt a chill run down my spine. The air was different there, almost like a low hum in the background. I raised my camera and took a photo, and just as the flash went off, I heard it. A whisper. It was soft. I thought I'd imagined it. But then again, clearing this time, it was someone speaking right into my ear. I spun around, shutting my flashlight down the empty corridor. Nothing. The whispering stopped, and for a moment, everything was silent. I decided to leave, feeling a little bit unnerved, but as I turned to go, I realized I didn't recognize where I was. The corridors, which had seemed straightforward on my way in, now felt like a maze. I started to walk faster, turning corners, trying to find the way I'd come in. That's when the whispering started again, louder now, like a crowd murmuring in the distance. My heart was racing, my breath coming in short gasps. I started to run, and the sound of my footsteps were echoing off the walls. Finally, I saw the entrance, or what I thought was the entrance. I pushed the door, and it swung open to the cool night air. I did not stop running until I got to my car. Once home, I was too shaken to sleep. I decided to look through the photos I'd taken. Most were just as expected. Empty rooms, broken windows. But the photo from hallway 3B, it made my blood run cold. There, in the corner of the shot, was a figure. It was blurry, but unmistakably human, standing in the shadows. I hadn't seen anyone while I was there. I haven't gone back to Maple Grove General since that night. Sometimes, when it's quiet, I think I can still hear those whispers just on the edge of hearing. It makes me wonder, what was in that hallway with me? There's something about abandoned places that always drew me in. So when my friend Jenna, a fellow urban exploration enthusiast, suggested we check out the old Whitmore Mill, I was totally in. The mill, towering and forsaken, had been a local legend in our town for years, with stories of mysterious disappearances and unexplained lights at night. We planned our first visit for Saturday night, aiming for an extra thrill. Equipped with flashlights and our phone, and a healthy dose of skepticism, we climbed over the old fence and stepped into the shadow of the mill. The building was massive, its broken windows gaping like open wounds. As we entered, our footsteps echoed through the vast, empty halls. The air was thick with the smell of rust and decay. Jenna, always the braver one, led the way, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. We explored the ground floor, finding nothing but the remnants of a bygone industrial era. Rusted machines, empty crates, and, layers of dust. We found a staircase and decided to head upstairs. The second floor was in worse shape, with holes in the floor and graffiti covering the walls. Jonathan was here, all that kind of stuff. Jenna was a few steps ahead when she suddenly stopped, her light fixed on something. I caught up and saw it too. Footprints in the dust, fresh ones, leading further into the building. The realization that we weren't alone sent a chill down my spine. Jenna suggested we follow them, her curiosity overpowering her caution. I reluctantly agreed. The footprints led us to a room at the far end of the mill, and the door was slightly ajar. Jenna pushed it open and we stepped inside. The room was different, cleaner, almost preserved. In the center, there was a table with 2 chairs. On the table, there were 2 cups of tea, steam still rising from them. It was as if someone had just been there. We heard a sound then, like a soft sigh coming from the corner of the room. Our lights revealed an old woman, sitting in a rocking chair, staring right at us with a mix of surprise and sadness. She told us her story. She was the mill's owner's widow, coming here every night, waiting for a husband who never returned from the mill's last working day. Her story was heartbreaking, a tale of love and loss intertwined with the history of the mill. We sat with her for a while listening, until she simply vanished before our eyes, leaving us in an empty room with 2 cold cups of tea. Jen and I left the mill, not speaking much. The experience had shaken us. We had gone seeking the thrill of the unknown, and we found a story that was all too human. A reminder that sometimes the most haunting ghosts are those of our own past. It was the night of the biggest house party of the year, thrown by the popular kids in our high school. I was there with my best friend Mia. We weren't really the party types, but we figured we'd give it a shot. Throughout the night, there was this playful, flirty tension between us, something new and unspoken. Anyway, the music was loud and the house was packed, so after a couple of hours, we were both ready for a break. Mia had the idea to sneak off into the old Henderson mansion just down the street. It was this huge abandoned place, rumored to be haunted, of course. People said that Mr. Henderson, a once wealthy businessman, had vanished without a trace, leaving the mansion to rot. We thought it would be exciting to explore it, and just 2 of us, maybe we could continue our flirtatious game we had started at the party. So we left the party and walked to the mansion under the moonlit sky. The mansion loomed over us, its dark silhouette sending shivers down my spine even before entering. We found a broken window and climbed inside. The mansion was eerily quiet, with only our whispers echoing through the vast, empty halls. Mia grabbed my hand, and I felt this kind of weird sense of courage rush through me. And when we found a secluded spot, what looked like an old study, we were able to lean into that flirtatious tension, to explore this new dynamic between us. But that's when we heard a noise. It was a faint scraping sound, like metal against metal. We froze, listening. The sound was coming from the floor above us. Curiosity got the better of fear, and we decided to investigate. Creeping up the grand staircase, we made our way to the source of the noise. As we reached the top floor, the scraping sound grew louder and more distinct. It was coming from a room down the hallway. The door was slightly ajar, and a faint light spilled through the crack. Mia squeezed my hand again, a silent signal of both excitement and fear. We edged closer, our hearts pounding in our ears. I pushed the door open slowly, and we peered inside. The room was cluttered with old furniture, dust-covered sheets, and the walls were lined with bookshelves. But what caught our attention was the man in the center of the room. He was hunched over a large metal box, his back to us. Tools were scattered around him. The scraping sound was him trying to pry open a box. He hadn't noticed us yet, and we could have left right then, but something about the situation felt off. Why would someone be here in the middle of the night trying to open a box in an abandoned mansion? Mia tugged on my sleeve, signaling that we should leave, but I was rooted to the spot. That's when the man suddenly stopped and turned around. He was older, with a weathered face and cold eyes that seemed to instantly assess us. He wasn't surprised to see us. In fact, he almost looked amused. "Well, what do we have here?" he said, his voice gravely and calm. "You know, you kids shouldn't be wandering around places like this." We didn't know how to respond. He took a step towards us and we instinctively stepped back. He noticed our fear and chuckled. "Relax, I'm not going to hurt you. Just curious about this old Henderson safe. You know, legend has it that old man Henderson hid his fortune somewhere in the mansion, and I think I just found it." We were torn between intrigue and the instinct to flee. The man continued, "You know, you can help me open this, and maybe I'll share a bit of the treasure with you." He gestured toward the box. Mia whispered to me that we should go, but before we could make a move, we heard the sound of police sirens outside. The man cursed under his breath. "Looks like we're out of time," he said, glancing out the window. He quickly gathered his tools and disappeared through a hidden door in the bookshelf. Mia and I didn't wait around. We raced downstairs, out the mansion, back towards the party, not stopping until we were safe among the crowd. We never really talked about what happened, not even really wanting to believe it ourselves. The next day we heard the news. The police had raided the Henderson mansion after an anonymous tip about a break-in. They found the open safe, but no sign of the man or the supposed fortune. Mia and I never went back to the Henderson mansion, and we never told anybody about our encounter with the mysterious man. But every time I passed by that old mansion, I couldn't help but wonder about the secrets it still holds, and that night could have turned out maybe so differently. I've always been drawn to the past, to the stories and relics that time forgot. That's what led me to the old clockmaker's shop in the heart of the city. It was a place shrouded in mystery, abandoned for years after the mysterious disappearance of its owner, Mr. Edmund Lacroix. Local lore was ripe with the tales of his unmatched skill and strange inventions. I decided to explore the shop, hoping to uncover some parts of its forgotten history. The building was tucked away in a forgotten corner of the city, its facade worn and weather-beaten. The front door was locked, but a side window was ajar. I slipped inside, my flashlight cutting through the thick layer of dust and darkness. The shop was a time capsule filled with clocks of all shapes and sizes, their ticking long silenced. As I moved through the cluttered space, I noticed a peculiar pattern. All the clocks, despite being different, were stopped at exactly 3:07. It was eerie, like a moment frozen in time. At this moment, I kind of felt like maybe I shouldn't have been exploring this empty space, but my curiosity got the best of me and I pushed forward. In the back of the shop, I found a hidden door. It led down to a basement where the air was really thick with a scent of oil and metal. The room was a workshop with tools and clock parts scattered around. And there, in the center of the chaos, was a large, intricate clock, unlike any I'd ever seen. This clock was a masterpiece. A complex network of gears and cogs with a beautiful ornate face. But what truly caught my eyes was a small inscription on its base. "For time lost and found again." As I leaned in to inspect it, the clock suddenly whirred into life, its hands moving rapidly backward. The room began to shake, the air shimmering like a heat haze. I stumbled back, watching in disbelief as the clocks in the shop above started ticking backward, their hands reversing. It was as if time itself was being rewound. Then, just as suddenly, everything stopped. The clock's hands settled on 3:07 and the room fell silent. I looked around, confused and disoriented, and that's when I saw him. Mr. Lacroix standing in the doorway, his eyes reflecting a mix of sadness and madness. He spoke, his voice a whisper from another time. "You found it. My greatest creation. A clock that could undo the movements we regret. Give us a chance to make things right. But time is a fickle and dangerous thing to meddle with," he said. He told me of his attempts to go back to save his wife from the illness that claimed her life. But each time he tried, something went wrong, and he was pulled back to the present, alone. His obsession with changing the past trapped him in a loop of his own making. As he spoke, the air grew colder and it began to fade, like a ghost losing its form. "Beware the lure of the past," he said, his voice fading. "Some moments are meant to be lost to time." And with that, he vanished, leaving me alone with the ticking clocks. I left the shop, the door closing behind me with a finality that felt like an end to an era. I never returned, but the memory of that night stayed with me, a haunting reminder of the delicate balance of time and the dangers of trying to change what has already passed. I'm not so sure if this was a hallucination, and honestly, I'm kind of scared to tell people about it because they might think I'm crazy. But I guess all those stories people had mentioned about Mr. LaCrow's clock store might actually have been true. In our small town, the Derwent house is more than just an abandoned mansion. It was a monument to a mystery that had never been solved. The Derwent family, once prominent and wealthy, had vanished overnight without a trace. No signs of struggle, no farewell notes, just an empty house left behind. Some said it was a tragic accident, others whispered about a family curse, but the truth remained hidden within the walls of that Victorian giant. The head of the family, Jonathan Derwent, was a stern and reclusive man, known for his obsession with occult practices and ancient artifacts. His wife Elizabeth was a shadow in his life, rarely seen and scarcely mentioned. They had 2 children, Annabelle and William, who were often seen playing in the mansion's overgrown gardens, their laughter a fleeting presence in the otherwise solemn household. Eddie, Sarah, Chris, and I grew up on these stories, the lore of the Derwent family woven into the fabric of our childhood. The night they disappeared, a terrible storm hit the town. Thunder roared, and lightning illuminated the sky like a flash of a camera. The next morning, the Derwent house was silent, its doors locked, windows shut, and no sign of the family. Fast forward to our teenage years, the allure of the Derwent house and its mysteries had only grown stronger. Driven by the stories we had heard our whole lives, we decided to explore the mansion. It was a crisp fall evening when we approached the house. The moon cast an otherworldly glow, creating haunting shadows among the gnarled trees. We found a way into the house through a broken window around back. Inside, we could get this weird smell of rotting wood, dust, and a faint, almost metallic odor. Our flashlights pierced the darkness, illuminating a time-forgotten interior. Dust-laden furniture, old family portraits, and an overwhelming sense of abandonment. The initial thrill soon gave way to a creeping unease. The house felt alive with unseen eyes watching us. In the parlor, we stumbled upon a startlingly out-of-place object, a pristine wooden toy train on the dusty floor. A sudden thump from the upper floor jolted us. Driven by a mix of fear and intrigue, we ascended the creaking staircase. The upstairs hallway, lined with closed doors, felt like a passage through hidden stories and whispered secrets. Guided by the recurring thumps, we reached a partially open door at the hall's end. Inside was a starkly different scene, a children's room strangely preserved. Toys arranged with care, walls decorated with vibrant colors, and in the center a gently swaying rocking horse. About here is when the shiver ran down my spine, and Sarah murmured about leaving, but Eddie, with a bravado that often masked his fear, stepped into the room. In that instant, the door slammed shut, sealing Eddie inside. His cries and bang on the door were harrowing, but when we finally forced the door open, the room was eerily calm, with no sign of him, just the slow creak of the rocking horse. Panic-stricken, we fled the mansion, not pausing until we were under the comforting glow of the streetlights. We shared our story with the disbelieving adults and skeptical authorities. A thorough search of the house revealed nothing. Eddie was never found. After Eddie's disappearance, I delved deeper into the Derwent family's history, seeking answers. I uncovered rumors of a hidden room in the mansion where Jonathan Derwent allegedly conducted strange rituals, hoping to contact otherworldly entities. Some speculated that one of those rituals went horribly wrong, causing the family's sudden vanishing. It's been almost 3 years now since Eddie went missing, so I think it's safe to say that we'll never be seeing him again. However, I wish we could just have a little bit of closure. I know his family needs it. Anyway, I don't think I'll be going near the Derwent house anytime soon, and I encourage anybody out there who's thinking about exploring abandoned buildings to maybe give it a second thought. You never know what you're going to find inside, and you might just lose your life for someone you care about. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed these stories, and hope you had a great time in the 3 a.m. club. We'll see you in the next video.